Hey everyone, Joel Morales. I'm Vice President of Product and Sales Enablement at Xtium. I'm super glad to be here with the panel and with Dustin. But we're really here to help answer your questions and hopefully provide some value for all you folks, wonderful people who are in business. So happy to be here.
Hey guys, Robby Gulri with RapidScale. I am the, ignore what that says up there, I'm the AI janitor. I spend a lot of time talking to companies about AI, how to build AI, how to secure AI, how to deploy AI into various cloud environments, work very closely with Bryan here and with Dustin. And I went to tech. Unfortunately, it was the other tech. I went to Georgia Tech. So I'm here to hopefully answer some questions for you guys.
So, hi everybody. So I'm Tom Broussard. So I'm a Director of Innovation around Data and AI for NRI. I'm actually based out of Houston, and I'm an Aggie, so anyway. Despite that, I spend the majority of my time helping people cut through the hype of AI. There's a lot of stuff out there talking about AI, and the way I kind of phrase it is how do you actually spell AI? And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bryan Nelson, and if you saw Dustin's video, it mentioned expert engineering. So I'm one of those engineers that supports him. Expert, I guess we'll find out over the next 30, 45 minutes here. I'll leave that up to you. But very excited to be with you today. I support Dustin from that technical perspective and work with his customers from small business all the way to large enterprise and Fortune 500 companies and government agencies. And so very excited to meet you and to share what we can on how to cut through all the noise. There's a lot of buzz out there. Let's talk about real world use of these tools.
All right, thanks guys. And then also, if anything sparks an idea or a doubt, wave us down, raise your hand, and if that fails, just shout it out because we'll get it. You don't have to wait till the end. We want to keep those questions fresh and on your mind because it's going to help everyone too, right? If you have a question, you answer it, or we answer it, it's going to help everyone here. Before we get started though, with my questions for the panel, I want to ask everyone out here a question, if that's okay. What does AI mean to you? Anybody out here? How do you see AI in use? What do you think of it? Anyone?
It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's a tool to make us more efficient.
Unlimited interns to do your job.
I call it my executive assistant.
Garbage in, garbage out.
It's like filters and automation.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good. All right, sounds good. So I'm gonna sit down. All right. So let's start. Let's talk to AI on the level accessible to everyone here. Who wants to go first? Since you got
Sure,
the
I
mic,
got
you're
the
going
mic.
first. All right. AI is and will continue to be a buzzword. Where's the real value to organizations today?
Yeah, so I'm going to give, I think, a pretty traditional answer. Most organizations at a leadership level are interested in three things, generally speaking. Top line revenue, bottom line savings, cost savings, and operational efficiency. Artificial intelligence is especially valuable in that third category, operational efficiency. It can help with the other areas too, but as an organization, what AI does is make you more agile, more lean. Now, when we say that, it's very easy to say, well, how, right? And this is where the artificial intelligence conversation starts to get complicated, because artificial intelligence solutions are very much an art of the possible solution. So if you say, where's the business value? It's a lot like saying, well, what are you trying to do? What is the outcome that you're looking for, or what's the thing that you're trying to accomplish? And that's where a lot of the buzz gets turned into, I don't know what the real value of these tools is, or how it can translate into value for my business. But I believe operational efficiency is the starting point for these types of solutions. I don't know, Tom, what do you think?
So I totally agree, but the biggest thing on the operational efficiency is understanding your own business enough and the data that you have to where you can actually create a value, right? So that's the hardest part, is most people realizing that, you know, saying you're gonna do AI and actually doing AI, putting it into production never lines up. It's expensive, it's time consuming. So you need to make sure you understand, have you defined a real viable use case that has a very short period to actually get that return of value, so that you can start creating more value and creating more, I guess, momentum to do more. Start small, don't start large. So that's pretty much what I think right now.
So I'm gonna hopefully refute some misconceptions that may be out there. First of all, AI is, I know the hype is real. Everything you read, everything you see is all about AI. AI has been around, the concept of AI has been around since the 1940s, since the 1950s. So we've been trying to think about a couple of things. I'm gonna summarize it into really 3 buckets, and hopefully this will start making sense. We've built AI solutions for hundreds of companies in all kinds of industries, and fundamentally they fall into one of 3 categories. Number 1 is prediction. Can I predict something before it happens? Now, obviously, if you're a business owner, imagine if you could predict when a customer is going to be able to buy something before they do. That's pretty cool. Maybe you could predict when a machine's going to break before it does. That's pretty cool, because you can be a lot more proactive versus being reactive. That's prediction. Number 2 is personalization. Imagine if I could provide a service for Bryan that's unique compared to the service I provide for Tom, right? So that's a sort of a very rudimentary way of personalizing my service, and data can basically help do that. And the third thing is basically segmentation. If I could bucketize table 3, table 6, and table 1 into 3 different buckets, and then provide insights and learn from those sort of bucketized approaches, that's ultimately what a lot of these AI solutions are doing for businesses. Now, in the consumer world, we're thinking about AI in the context of large language models, ChatGPT, Perplexity. That's an element, that's a subset of what's going on in the world of AI holistically. Joel, I'm sure you got a lot of insights.
Yeah, appreciate that. So my favorite answer on this question is, I've heard this and I'll say it again, AI is the 25th hour. Right, the one thing that we can't make more of is more time, right? Until now. And so what AI allows us to do is start to actually create more repeatable process, offload a lot of more mundane tasks, so that we're actually opening up more time. Now, I've heard it said that AI is the 25th hour. I like to think of AI as the 25th, 100th hour. Like, organizations, if they use this kind of tool correctly, they can supercharge their productivity. In the security space, we're seeing hundreds and hundreds of hours of threat analysis now being able to be done in a matter of minutes, so that we can better understand threats and then better respond to them in real time. So this is definitely an exciting time to be both in business and tech in this time period.
So I think one of the challenges is that most people just know ChatGPT and don't really understand all that you were talking about with the different buckets of what it can do. So do we just ask ChatGPT, what can you do for me? Like, how do you find out really some of the things
great place to start,
it can help with? Because I think for the average person, we just don't know, other than write, articles or whatever we need it to do,
You want to take that, Bryan?
You just asked my next question.
So it's a very common perspective to reduce these tools to what is most visible to us, which is the ChatGPTs and Microsoft Copilot and Anthropic Claude. That is one subset of AI solutions. So I would refer to that as a digital assistant. Some other ones could be predictive analytics, as Robby touched on, and we'll get to some real-world use cases here in a few minutes, I hope, and Robby will make that more concrete. But it could also be things like computer vision, and that could be layering an AI tool on top of security cameras to do things like firearms detection before a firearm is discharged, or fall detection. You think of like a loading dock, and automatically calling 911 based on the severity of the fall. Or it could be things that, like document processing, which also actually falls into the bucket of computer vision. Because what it can do is it can look at a set of contracts that are all written completely differently and pull out specific key pieces of information and put it into a database where now the data is structured.
Yeah.
So now you have a database of your contracts, and you can easily see the start date and the end date of all contracts instead of going back and reading every contract because they're all listed out differently. Yes?
So kind of to piggyback on Nancy's question, it sounds like, because she's right, the average user just doesn't know all the complexities and capabilities of AI. So it makes me think of like when we went into home security business and all these companies came out and we're gonna go up, we can come to your home and we can create a home security system for you that is specific to your needs in your home. Are there companies now like that do that with AI? They'll come to your business and they'll tell you basically how you can integrate AI into your business to make it more efficient? Or do we just hunt and peck and try to figure it out?
Well, you're setting us up, because let me hand the mic over to my colleague right here.
Yeah, this is awesome. So, I think you answered it. But anyway, discuss it out. So from that perspective, there's really three ways to look at everything with AI. You're either going to build AI, which is highly complicated. You're either going to buy AI, or you're going to get AI embedded in something. So when you start looking at AI, when you define what AI is, which has kind of been, like we said, it's been around for 40, 50 years. If you're a small business, are you going to be buying something that has AI in it that makes you more efficient? That's great. That's a capability you should be looking for. And then do the research on that so you understand what the AI is actually doing. Or are you going to buy something that does AI and then you're going to add on to that? Or are you going to actually build from scratch? So you got to start doing the homework for that.
Is there an expert that can come to your
Yeah.
business and package AI for you? Because we don't, because you're saying now as the end user, you got to figure it out. And
Well,
I'm saying,
these are some of your options.
right.
Right, so like with the company that I'm with, we're in pure consulting, we do the discussions on AI. So I'll go in to sit down with you and say, okay, what is AI to you? And then we step through the process of the envisioning to do all of that. Let's define AI, let's get those use cases, real use cases that you can actually get value from. Let's get those defined, and then at that point, I'll tell you, this is how much it's gonna cost you. And then hopefully we have some kind of measurement at the end that actually says, okay, there's an ROI tied to it. So we have to go through that process with you.
It's funny, even though first of all, if anybody tells you they're an AI expert, they're lying to you. There's nobody who's an AI expert. I'll give you an example. I was at a university recently, and in the room was the head of the university. This is in Macon, Georgia, Mercer University, for those of you may be familiar. Chief data officer. I was very impressed that Mercer has a chief data officer and the head of infrastructure, traditional IT infrastructure. And they said, we want to be AI, we want to be AI. We spent 3 hours really ultimately coming down to one, back to Tom's point, of a use case. And for them it was, I want to be able to predict, we want to be able to predict the success of a entering freshman outside of just looking at his or her SAT score and their GPA, right? That was the business case that we decided to figure out and try to solve. And the reason I'm telling you this story is it goes back to your business. If there are gaps that you see, you know your business better than anybody else. If there's opportunities that you see for efficiency, if there's areas where you feel like there's too much manual labor or mechanical work being done, that's really where you start honing in on how AI is really the symptom. It's like the byproduct, but ultimately it's how to take your data, marry it with third-party data to be able to then figure out how to, again, going back to the three things I said earlier, predict, personalize, or segment your capabilities.
Yeah, in response to that, I just want to say something. I'm sorry, I don't mean to dominate. Anybody can jump in. But in response to that, because I come from higher education,
Okay.
16 years, And higher education, they already know what the success rate is going to be. What they need is a tool to find ways to actually, when you talk
Increase it,
about
yeah.
responding
That's right.
and intervention and helping those students before they get to that point where they're gonna drop or
That's right.
whatever. So they
That's a
know,
good use
the
case.
data's already there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm
So,
just saying.
so, but to carry on with that,
Yeah.
if you've identified where you, and I'll use the case of a law firm I was working with.
Yeah.
They had lawyers doing low-value work that could be automated. That was a perfect use case because they don't need to be doing that at the $1,500 an hour, whatever it is they were charging, right? Some ungodly amount that nobody ever pays, but can they automate those processes and take that so that the high-value employee, you know, a full-time employee can be doing something that actually adds more value? That's the big areas. Once you've identified and understand AI for the efficiency piece, that's why we're saying that efficiency is one of the best areas for AI. Once you start identifying those become the use cases. Those are very simplistic, they're more about automation, getting that efficiency from your employees.
I think what.
See, that's what Joel speaks to that too.
Yeah,
efficiency.
and I appreciate that, but I think for everyone in the room, you asked the most important question: where do we start?
Yeah.
Right? Where do we start? And what you're looking at, you know, here with Dustin, you know, Dustin represents a group of organizations that can help you with your start, right? And so, you know, a lot of times, sometimes it's simply having a workshop and creating some kind of a roadmap, because a lot of times, you know, you may have a business use case, and experts like us, we know what AI is capable of, but until we meet and create a plan together, you know, you won't have the desired outcome you're looking for. And so, Gartner, anybody know who Gartner? Okay. So the Gartner actually came out with a special publication, market guide in September on AI for consulting. Gartner says this. They say that you are 200% more likely to get value out of AI working with a consultant than going to an AI provider directly. Because a consultant will actually shortcut the time to actually realizing the value for your business, okay? So the short answer is, can someone just come to my business, help explain AI to me, and then help me figure out a plan on how AI can work with my business? The short answer is yes. And that man right there is the person you want to talk to, okay?
I don't know if this already exists, I don't know about it, but could you throw a query into AI and say, find me the best employee for, you know, like, does it go down the wormhole and go into LinkedIn and look at everybody that's open to work, and I say, this is what I want, rather than going through Indeed and, you know, and that process, can you just throw them out there and have them recruit somebody for you? Can it do that yet?
So generically, yes. So if you look at LinkedIn, if you look at Indeed, you look at ZipRecruiter, all these platforms are closed platforms, right? So what the AI, whether you're talking about ChatGPT or Perplexity or Anthropic, Copilot, what they're basically trained on is data that is publicly available, right? What we refer to in our world as parameters. So if you look at the latest version of ChatGPT, it has about 2 trillion parameters. Fancy way of saying 2 trillion data elements that have been fed into that model. So if that individual's profile is somehow publicly available, then you can actually query that particular or prompt in the AI world to ask those kind of questions. However, if the data is behind a door, a closed door, like LinkedIn, where you need a login, or an Indeed account where you need a pro account to be able to access those profiles, then no, it would not be able to get to that.
And you also have to be real careful. It might not give you back the answer that you want because it misunderstood what you were asking. And based on the data that it has, it's going to say, oh, it's not there, so let me just give you something. Might not be totally accurate.
Speaking of that, can you talk a little bit about hallucinations? I know with ChatGPT they're fairly common, but you guys were talking about some other AI units. Are they common amongst all the ones you guys are familiar with?
Yeah, so hallucinations, so remember, you have to understand, the AI technology is very efficient, okay? And it's also, a lot of times, the way a deep learning model works, large language model, it has a lot of different data points to pull in. So sometimes, as it's essentially creating its own calculated response to a question, you'll get AI hallucination. What that is it's working with a lot of different data, right? Someone said over here, garbage in, garbage out. What you're really seeing is the outputs of sometimes data that's not correct, or data that's not properly queried and then outputted correctly. So it's really more about the data itself. And then, when it comes to, this is where, this is why the AI conversation is far bigger than just using ChatGPT, right? You need organizations, right? Like Robby's, right? Like that can help build an AI, sometimes on a small language model, right? Where there's less data to work with. So that way, sometimes the quality of the outputs are better. And so that's also, I know that we want to answer this question. I just want to say, we saw your hand back there as well. So I just want you to know.
Kind of in line is the free versions of ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot still, how dated are they, in terms of the information that they're pulling?
So I'll focus in on ChatGPT for a minute. So you said the free versions, right? The last time I checked, the data set for the free version ends in March 2024. So we're about a year in now. We're in 2025. We're in April, almost May. The premium version actually doesn't give you an updated data set. It gives you a couple of things. It gives you more tokens. That means you have more input ability to generate more output. So that's the $20 a month version. That's the premium version. They also have a $200 version, which is, I think for most of us in the room, probably not applicable. It's for truly deep research. If you want to do an analysis on an 800-page PDF that you wrote or somebody else wrote, and you want to ingest it into the model, it'll actually allow you to do that with the super premium version. So the data sets you got to be careful, and this is where some of the hallucinations come from, is it's not a Google search. It's not immediate to what was updated yesterday. That's right. On a web page. So you got to be careful with some of the results, but that is actually a really valid question. I'm assuming maybe Bryan knows this. I'm not as I guess intimate with Copilot. I think Copilot has that same kind of approach.
Well, Copilot. No, Bryan, you want to?
Go ahead.
Well, the magic of like Copilot, so there's multiple Copilots. There's Copilot for security, Copilot for service, Copilot for 365, which now is just called Microsoft Copilot. One of the things that's important to note about that is that Copilot brings large language model capability to your Microsoft tenant, right? So now what it's doing is it's taking that same ability to read data, create analysis of it, and then outputs of it in your own email tenant where your teams, where your files are. So it's bringing ChatGPT to you, and there's a lot of power there. Another kind of the cool things about Copilot as well is that Copilot for 365, this can now start to help accelerate your time to building PowerPoints. Who here hates building PowerPoints? Yeah, I think everyone's hands should go up, and so writing emails, creating PowerPoints, all of that is available. One of the security concerns when you deploy technology like that is making sure that all of your internal employee users are in their right groups, and that they are closed off to certain data that you don't want them to see within your business. That's a really big, from a security perspective, things like Copilot, it opens up the good old-fashioned conversation, or the good old-fashioned best principle of role-based access control, where this is a role, and I only want this person accessing this amount of data within my business. I don't want my new summer intern finding out how much the CFO made in their salary last year, right? And AI, when you bring that kind of technology to your business, it democratizes it. It makes it available. It makes it easier to search, easier to find within your organization. Very powerful. Also, a highly turbulent potential when it comes to privacy and data integrity. So
that was actually when Microsoft first launched Copilot, and they kind of relaunched Copilot recently. That was actually the #1 question that was asked was, hey, how much money does so-and-so make? Because all this HR data was available
Yeah.
to the masses. So yeah, absolutely, you gotta be careful with that. Somebody else had a.
He's the question. I've been waiting for a while.
Oh.
Yeah, so
She's got one too, yeah. He's been.
Who's been waiting?
Yeah, go ahead, he's.
Excuse me, I can't talk apparently. I was just curious how exactly you account for biases in the underlying data sets with the, let's say, the feed-forward networks in the system. So like, let's say to the employee question, if let's say I'm on my 4th graduate degree, but due to the weights of the feed-forward network of the system, it, let's say, filters me out based off of the city that I'm from, or let's say some other quote-unquote extraneous parameter. How do you account for or put guardrails on the data sets themselves?
I just build this stuff, you secure it, so.
Well, the responsible AI. Aria, you want to speak to Aria? Or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so very important, right? In the early days, so folks remember, large language models it's a new this is a new industrial revolution, right? 2017 changed the world. You know, when the paper came out, large language models. It was a subset of deep learning, right? A transformer model. This is newer, right? And when companies first started deploying this, and I think it was a certain organization that his name has to do with a rainforest in Latin America. They started using some of this in the early days, and one of the things they did was they started looking through thousands of resumes, and immediately there was a bias. They actually, you know, pardon me to all the ladies in the room, the AI, the early algorithm threw out all female resumes. And so quickly they stopped using that particular model. But one of the things we're finding is now, and this is what someone brought this up too. AI, yes, is eliminating a lot of jobs. It's also creating a whole lot of new jobs. And part of this is training AI in a responsible and ethical way. And so Microsoft, this is why I actually have more of a love than hate relationship with Microsoft. I'm really, really passionate about a lot of Microsoft solutions. Microsoft has an RAI framework, responsible AI framework. And so you can go and they update the world on their framework on how they're keeping AI free from bias, okay, and making it fair. So because this is a real now social, you know, issue. It's a social issue, social economic issue that we need to make sure that these algorithms are fair. They don't throw out resumes from people from particular backgrounds, cities, gender, you know, all of it. And so this is a big thing that there are people right now with jobs. I know at least I know at Microsoft making sure that the AI algorithms that are being trained keep things fair. Really big thing.
Good. It's kind of all back to what we had talked about before. With when you had stated something about Google, right? Now you've got your new Apple integrated AI, you know, and you go to your search and it kind of pulls up stuff. So are companies kind of, and Google has their own as well. So are they kind of like integrating, or how is that actually performing in respect to what the outputs are from a Apple AI or Google AI mixed with the search engines and so forth?
Do you have Alexa at home?
I'm sorry?
Do you have Alexa at home?
I have Google.
You have Google Home
Yeah,
at home?
Google Home. She's
Google
not
Home,
real
yeah.
smart though.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I'm going to date myself. The analogy that I'm going to give you is, I remember when wireless or Wi-Fi first came about. You had all these companies with all these different standards doing their own thing, and there was no, what we refer to in the technology space as interoperability, right? So today, I feel like AI from Apple is slightly different than AI from Gemini or Google, slightly different from OpenAI, slightly different from Microsoft, slightly different from, you know, Anthropic. There is yet to be sort of a universally accepted standard to be able to, not only for input, but also for output. I feel like we're still early in that sort of market evolution.
And another thing is there's a lot of legal that's changing the way all of this works.
Huge. Yeah.
From the EU side, EU is way advanced in what they're doing to AI. It's coming over to the US, you know, in a timely manner. There's lots of lawsuits still going through, and I think the IP thing just completed where it's okay for these large OpenAI type companies to steal your IP. That was okayed, because they did it and there's no punishment for it. That's what the foundational models were trained on. Talking about biases, you need to understand those foundational models, what they were trained on, to even understand that whatever you add in there doesn't add additional bias or takes away bias. So that's why you gotta go in and change the models, change the weights, play around with it. So you've gotta spend that much more time understanding what you're doing with it before you can take, or understand that the risk is now on you, you know, not the provider. So, because those things still haven't been defined, the law hasn't caught up yet, so, but keep an eye on that area too.
So in respect to the laws and so forth, if you are doing something for your company, right, and I'm going in and I'm bullet pointing a proposal that I had done and asking it to put it in because I'm gonna present this in front of a team or whatnot, and I put it into a PowerPoint. Is this taking information that I'm putting into it and jeopardizing any, you know, non-disclosure information that may need to be done?
Which, what are you putting it into again?
ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
very much so.
So many of these models run in
Not
what's
to
called.
say, I'm just curious about
Not me,
it.
asking
Say it for a friend, say it for a friend.
Asking for a friend.
Many of these models are running in what's referred to as learning mode, right? Meaning what you put into it becomes part of its learned data set.
Yeah, that's right.
And then can be queried by others.
That's right.
So you have to be very, very careful about what you put into these public free tools, because you are the product when it's free, right? And so that's why tools like Microsoft Copilot exist, and you can see it's there's a little shield when you're not in learning mode, you're in private mode in that particular tool. But that's a major concern, and why you should be very, very careful about what you load into these platforms.
Is it like a year back though? In other words, like if we're a year out right now from information?
No,
It's live. When it's in learning mode, it's live.
The friend just shared everything to everyone.
That's how Google works, right?
It depends on the model, again.
I mean, but I just-
So there's
I've-
multiple modules in Google Gemini, and if you're in the free version, it certainly operates that way, as far as I know.
And Wikipedia, it works like that too?
But when you open the tool, you have a drop down in the top left corner, you can pick which version of Google Gemini you're running in. And certain ones are in learning mode and certain ones are not.
Good.
I'm in education and I don't have a K-12 school. Every learner learns very differently, and so I can have the same problem or concept, but I need to dissect it down and teach it, instruct it in 6 different ways. So I've been manually trying to figure out how to use ChatGPT to understand each individual learner so that they can develop the concepts and explain it to that learner the way that they need it. But I feel like I pay for too many different services trying to get to what I need. I'm wondering if in a situation like that, if I need to bring someone in to customize a learning program for me, or if I just need to continue to help the AI system understand each student and feed it information about each student in a confidential way, so that it understands the behaviors and the pattern of that student, so that it can build its follow-up modules, or, do you understand where I'm going with
Yeah.
that?
So now the rubber's hit the road here, because now we've got a business problem with a key outcome that we're looking for, right? And now we can say, okay, yes, we can put together a solution that addresses that particular problem. To harken back to like our first question, we were kind of in the, well, this is a art of the possible type of solution. So here's the possibility. And so in my mind, that would fall into a custom AI developed solution. And both NRI and RapidScale, and I believe Xtium, all have practices and teams of not just consultants, but the engineers to build those solutions that are customized to your organization and maintain the privacy and security that your organization requires.
Bryan, can I take a
Yeah.
add a comment?
Yeah.
I'll add a couple of things. Well, first of all, I did about 2 weeks ago in Atlanta, I did a 3-hour prompting training, basically fancy way to say how to teach these tools. I have, obviously we don't have 3 hours here. However, I put a whole set of slides together that I'm gonna share with Dustin, and he can share it out with the rest of you guys. And it walks through, I'll give you some examples, where I feel like some of the customization that you're looking to do, at least rudimentary, can be helpful. I do a lot of writing. If you find me on LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of blogs and various things that we do. I have a certain writing style. Not to say that I'm using ChatGPT to basically copy and paste, but sometimes it helps as a thinking tool, as an executive assistant. I think I heard that earlier. And so what I've trained the model, and I have the premium version of ChatGPT, to basically provide output in my style. How do I do that? I provide input and basically tell ChatGPT, hey, this is how I write. Call this the Robby style of writing, and then whatever you produce, generate it in the Robby style of writing. And so that's a very rudimentary example, but there's all kinds of other pointers that we can share that basically may help you with a little bit of this customization. But outside of that, Bryan's absolutely right. This is what we're here for. These group of folks are amazing at thinking about business and then aligning it to how to solve that with technology.
I'm Dr. Jaya Prakash. I'm a retired physician. And in the physician world, in the healthcare, we know what a debacle EHR has been. No EHR talks to anybody. Or, I have actually 2 clients who do the coding for it, and they know how protective they are of their code, so they don't talk to each other. AI is similar, and what I experienced personally as a patient is AI spit out a protocol. If they treated me like that, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And I think over-reliance on technology and not understanding the limitations, talking about the garbage in, garbage out, it's not just that data may be valid, but you may treat the lab report versus the patient. They're 2 different things, and I am a lab professional too, so I can tell you that. So where do you see, other than the scut work, checking all the boxes and stuff, where do you see role of AI in diagnostic aspects and prognostic aspects of healthcare? So that's a whole new different one.
I'm not a physician, but I did stay at a hospital. No, I'm kidding. So I'll give you an example of what we built on the input side as an example. So we worked with a healthcare agency, and they said, look, we want to be more efficient. And there's a lot of these AI note-taking tools out there. In fact, a lot of our phones are already equipped with these things. So when a doctor is sitting with a patient, can I basically record that conversation instead of a human scribe, record it, let the AI basically organize that transcript, align it to SOAP formatted as an example notes, be able to then extract IDC and other billing codes from that information to be able to go from in our world sort of input or ideation into a potential subscription. I want to use the word potential pretty carefully or pretty loudly, because that's where the human intuition and human, the AI didn't go to medical school like you did, right? And I think there's this, we were talking at the other table, we're at this evolutionary period, right? If you remember from school, the whole Neanderthal to human evolution, which now we realize is a bunch of BS, but it's kind of where we are at, right? It's on one end is completely human, on the other end is completely machine. We're somewhere in the middle, which has got to be augmented, and it's got to be tested and made sure it's validated by human intelligence, intuition, and all the experience that you have with your former practice.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yeah.
So certainly these tools are going to cause disruption, jobs disruption. And I agree with you 100%. It cannot replace that human-to-human interaction that I think is required in a medical situation. Imagine getting a cancer diagnosis from an AI tool. Like, no, nobody wants that, right? And so where I see these tools going is people who are efficient and deft at using them. It'll become a lot like listing on your resume, I can work with Excel, Word, and Outlook. I'm also proficient in using these AI tools, these digital assistants, right? And that makes me a more viable candidate when I'm going to a job interview. That it's another skill that will be in your skill set section on your resume, essentially.
Bryan, can I speak to that?
Yeah.
So also it's important, first of all, thank you for your years of service, Doctor. Okay, let's talk about AI domains for a second, right? Bryan talked about this earlier. Computer vision, document intelligence, knowledge mining, generative AI. These are some of the big domains of current capability, okay? We now, with the power of computer vision, can look at MRI reports, X-ray scans, and we can train a model on thousands and thousands of outputs of CT scans, MRIs, X-rays, and be able to train it on what to look for. I think there was a recent, I read something recently where a particular AI model was able to detect breast cancer years before it would show up in a traditional type, right? That's a great example of using AI in the medical school. Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because, however, even though some of the tools and capabilities are accelerating, back to Bryan's point, we still need the human element inside. This goes back to, folks, what I'm talking about, like the human space in the story is far from over. Like everyone's just kind of throwing their arms up in the air and say, okay, I guess we're all done, humanity's done. No, that's not like, we actually need physicians helping train AI. That's a real thing. Like that's a brand new job that probably didn't exist before. And so what I've heard this said, and I like this comment. Humans are not going to be necessarily replaced by AI, but humans who use AI will replace humans who don't. Right? So humans are not necessarily going to be replaced by AI, but humans who use AI will replace humans who do not. Right? So if your business is using AI, you're most likely going to replace a business that isn't. Or on the flip side, if you're not, then the chances of you being replaced by a business that is using AI is far greater.
All right. I know we've got a lot of questions, but we're running out of time.
This is so much fun.
This is great. This is great. But there's one question that I have that I want to make sure we get in, because these guys have all worked on some amazing projects and their use cases, and they all have stories to tell, and that's my favorite part. So I kind of want to give them a chance to talk about some of the things they've worked on, because it's fascinating, and it's really cool examples of how AI can be used in the businesses.
Yeah.
And talk about call centers. Since
Sure.
you're talking about replacing people being replaced.
Yeah.
People are afraid of call centers. So.
Yeah. Well, so the example I will give was a radiology lab, and they had, I want to say 20, 25 locations for their radiology clinics, and they had a scheduling service that lived on SMS, right? And so maybe you've experienced this as a patient. You schedule your appointment, you receive SMS reminders, right? Now that's automation. That's something different than an artificial intelligence solution. But the messages that they were sending out to their patients was, click this link to confirm, or reply yes to confirm, or no to not confirm. But what happened was patients were responding with, I'd like to reschedule for April 23rd at 2 p.m. And they did not have the staff in place to monitor the responses. All that they had was an automated system where if the person said yes, great. If they said no, here's a link, kind of thing. And they were missing and causing patient, angst by not responding to these text messages that they had sent out and then people were responding to in human language. And so what they were able to do is take an artificial intelligence chatbot, essentially, that looked at their scheduling availability of their labs and was able to interact with the patient in human language to go back and forth to find okay, you need to cancel your appointment. That's fine. Let's find the next best appointment for you. So are you available here? No, I'm not. I'm available here. Okay, we're not available here. How about this one? Yes, that works. Great. All in human language, all without the intervention of an individual, unless it was specifically requested. You know? And so they alerted the patient, this is an AI tool that you're interacting with. If you need to talk to a human being, we can escalate. But they found that it greatly reduced the need for all of the, for the human to intervene, and made them more efficient, brought up patient happiness, and yeah, it was a cool project to work on.
So mine's not as exciting as that, but I'm more of a process type of person anyway, but in the healthcare system that we're working with, when one healthcare system buys another healthcare system, that's a huge undertaking, right? And you're moving data from point A to point B, and it takes you years to go from Cerner to Epic or whatever the systems are that you're doing, which is a huge cost. So what we did is we joined with a hospital chain, and they wanted us to do a research project. Can we use an LLM or a chatbot to actually speed that process up? No deliverable, let's just see if we can get 60% accuracy. That was the goal, right? So taking everything, very customized code, let's go and take, and it was going from Cerner to Epic, so let's take the fields in Cerner, let's match them to Epic. They're still both structured, but they're named totally different, everything's different, the underlying table structures are different, but we were able to look at the whole data as a whole, data per table, data per element, and we actually, overall, we got about a 70-75% using the metadata from each of them to actually transfer it over. So what we proved is taking a conversational LLM, using it in a totally different way that was not designed for, we actually got some decent responses. And I think if we were to productize this, then we would actually have a tool that now enables corporations that when they're doing a merger, instead of going out and hiring 600 people for a couple of years to manually go through this, you can actually automate that process. Learned a lot about the LLMs in the process, and a little bit more than we wanted to about the Cerner and Epic systems, but it was an interesting project. More processes, not real exciting, but we were pretty efficient.
I have a quick question as it relates to healthcare. One of my partners is Health First. Is anybody from Health First in the room before I say what I want to say? So they're right now in the process of going through an EMR, electronic medical records, updating, and they're like, oh, it's gonna be grueling for them.
Right.
And as you were talking, I was just thinking, is this something where an AI tool could help with the process,
Yeah.
making it more user-friendly?
Yeah, we should talk.
Okay, yes.
We don't have it productized, it's very manual right now,
Yeah.
but we've proved it, right? So,
Yeah.
and again, we actually did a second version of that, doing a code migration for somebody with 40 million lines of code. We used AI to start that process.
Wow.
Sped it up by about 8 months. So,
Awesome.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, cause you mentioned ROI on this earlier, and what is your tangible, you said 75%, what does that show back to the business from a result of, hey, you didn't have to hire 600 people over 8 months, what does that turn
So
into?
talking to the CIO, we could, if we implemented this, we didn't get to that point yet, we turned 2 years into 6 months. So, with a lot less people.
I was gonna say, do you know cost reduction from that alone, what they gonna say?
It just depends on their rates, but
Hard to say,
it's a couple of $1 million, so,
That's fair.
yeah,
Yeah, that's huge, awesome.
or more.
All right, I got a couple, very quick ones. Does anybody know what a demurrage fee is? Don't worry, I didn't either before we got involved in this project. Basically, we work with a logistics shipping company. So what a demurrage fee is for every hour a ship is on dock, right? Savannah, New York, Baltimore, Long Beach, Houston, San Francisco, they're all different. They all have different characteristics and attributes. But ships get charged anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 an hour for every hour that a ship is on dock. So again, going back to the prediction, they came to us and said, can we predict when a ship is gonna arrive on dock? Because if I can predict within a couple of minutes, amazing, because I can be much more proactive. I can send my offloaders and laborers and folks to offload all the products off the ships, and the ships can go on their way. Now, that's a pretty simple business problem to understand, but in order to do it, we had to take a bunch of data. It wasn't just the speed of the ship coming into dock, it's the oceanic current data, and then all kinds of weather data, as well as the traffic patterns within the ports as well. So that's one example of prediction logistics with a fairly simple definable use case, but then it took over 50 data sets to basically make that happen. Now, that's a very simple ROI. That's a great question, because that's pretty measurable, right? So now you start looking at a much more proactive way of doing it. It's millions of dollars that they save on a year-to-year basis, just from the simple fact that they can predict within about 3.5 minutes when a ship is gonna arrive. So that's one. Second is, we worked with an airline in Atlanta, can't say who they are, but I turned on my faucet called Delta this morning in the hotel. So they came to us and said, hey, we want to be able to predict how much fuel is the right amount of fuel in our jets, right? Because too much is a cost inefficiency problem, too little is a safety problem. Again, pretty simple business case, but 700 variables that took, or data sets, to be able to do that. Because it's the same thing, it's not just the fuel and the weight of the fuel, but it's the traffic patterns at Hartsfield and other airports around the country. There's all kinds of things that have to go into it, but ultimately another prediction use case. So you start getting an idea of how businesses, especially these larger businesses, are thinking about data, AI, just to be more efficient and more proactive when it comes to their business operations.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I love Robby's stories, by the way. It's like the 40,000 an hour. That's, to me, it's mind-boggling. That's awesome. I think I've seen a lot of value for AI in the cybersecurity space. In the world of security, speed is everything. Okay, and so the bad guys are learning how to use AI to attack businesses. So the good guys need to learn how to use AI to protect businesses, okay? And that's the business that Xtium is in. And so one of the platforms that we deploy has a lot of AI built into it, more of a traditional machine learning approach. But in the world of security, everything that can be logged by a machine is called an event. And think of an event as programs opened, programs closed, emails sent, emails received, files downloaded, files uploaded, files deleted, files recovered from your recycle bin. Everything that a human can do that a machine can log is an event. Now, if you have 100 people in your business working all hours of the day on their laptops, that can mean a lot of events, right? Okay. There's this one particular platform that we deploy within our security portfolio that we actually can see upwards of like 45 million events a month, and use machine learning and AI to sift through all of that activity to find maybe 2 or 3 or 4 actual security incidents. So without that AI and machine learning, we need to rely on human security analysts to sift through, run SQL queries against it, and basically try our best to manually assess all of that data to find the one real threat. But now with AI within security, the threats are coming forward a lot faster, and therefore we're able to address them a lot quicker. And like I said, in security, speed is everything. And so, AI represents a lot of threat to business, but also represents a major positive opportunity in how you can protect your business. And we're here to help you with that. So.
And my stories are good.
That's the one question that I have, is that it seems like AI is almost like space, where it's a Wild West and there's no regulations. And so, I mean, there's obviously some, but I mean, there's a lot of companies and countries that are, as soon as you come up with a way to stop them, they find another way to go. So, like, it seems, since everything is going to the cloud and accessible and ways to hack into it, I mean, how do you see this as being secure for most businesses, because most don't have the money, resources, and technology to be able to stop, intrusion.
Yeah, well, let's talk.
Okay.
That's actually why we're here. We're here to help answer that very question, right? There's a lot that I can literally talk for days about this. So I think the better answer is to get with Dustin, and then see how we can help, explore that further. But in a lot of cases, the world of security is still very much a world of policy and control, okay? So you still have to create the right kind of policies for your business. A lot of times, if your business follows certain security frameworks, a lot of those policies have already been built. We have, the United States government in the Department of E-commerce developed a practice called the NIST Foundation. It's National Institute of Security Science Standards and Technology. And the NIST protocol has thousands and thousands and thousands of publications on exactly how to secure your business in like the most minute detail. And so as organizations like us that are security nerds, we ingest a lot of that best practice and then help apply it to your business. And then we help bring a lot of that policy and then use technology for control, right? And so, but again, every business is different, right? Every business has different vulnerabilities. So when it comes to, how do you keep a business secure in the realm of AI? It's the same way we've been keeping businesses secure since the beginning: policy, control. And we're using AI to help accelerate some of that. But in the end, it's knowing where the vulnerabilities could be, how to prevent attack. There's something called the MITRE ATT&CK framework, where we understand how attackers, over thousands and thousands of researched attacks over the years, we understand exactly how cybersecurity analysts break in, how they create lateral movement, escalation, right? How they escalate their privileges. We know how we know what the bad guys are up to, so we know how to protect you. And then from there, I think another answer to that too is, in general, there are some general best practices. Like if you don't have like multi-factor authentication built for your business right now, set it up today.
Yep.
Like if you don't have MFA built with some kind of conditional access policy, right now, just right now, we know that if Joel's Morales' passwords get compromised, if somebody tries to hack into my account or log into my account from a Russian IP address, right now, because I have certain geographical conditional access policies in place, that'll prevent a hacker trying to access my account because Joel's not in Russia. Joel's in Melbourne.
Palm Bay.
Right, I'm in Palm Bay, and so did I say that wrong? Did I say it wrong? Yeah, close enough. So I'm normally in Tampa, okay? So, but the answer, that's a long way of answering the question, which is, this is why we're here, right? This is why Dustin's here. We're actually here to help be a consultant and help your business be better secure.
Do we have time?
Sure, yeah, you could do one more.
So where does automation and an AI start? So I think a lot of people look at the output of data visualization tools like Power BI or Tableau and think, wow, this is AI, because they haven't seen this before. Also, I would argue that even some of the predictive analytics tools have been
There you go.
here for decades, like sensors on aircraft, right? So where is that automation? Have we been using AI all along, or are we just calling some automation tools AI today?
Yes. So there is rules-based automation, right? And
Yeah,
that is
if then,
a
yes.
human being telling the machine, yeah, if then kind of statements. And if you see, kind of like in my use case that I gave, the texting scheduling service. If somebody responded yes to the confirmation, that's rules-based automation, right? So the system says, I saw the letters by yes in the right order, in the right space. That means this patient has confirmed their appointment. That's automation. AI paired into that, right, to bring it down, is when the person responds, I'm not available on that spot, can I reschedule? The system has no rule in place to respond to that, and so it doesn't know how to, and it doesn't, right? What a generative AI solution does is it takes that and it creates a response, it generates a response that's not based on a rule that any individual wrote, it's based on the data that it was trained on.
I've got a simple way to, I got another story, Joe. Anybody have a coffee machine at home? Yeah. Two of them, okay. All right, have you guys ever set a timer to say, all right, you know, this machine needs to turn on at 6:11 a.m.? Because, all right, so that's a human-machine interface. You're basically touching the machine, interfacing with the machine to tell it to do something, to automate, right? So it's automated the process of basically turning on at 6:11 because that's when you told it to start. Take it to the next step. The next step is the machine says, oh, I noticed that over the last 3 months that you get up between 6:04 and 6:17 a.m. and instead of you having to touch my machine to start, I'm just gonna turn it on for you. Now obviously you gotta put in the water and the coffee and all that, but work with me here, right? So basically the machine now has a little bit of intelligence to say, look, I found a pattern and I'm able to basically, turn this machine on. Let's take it to the next level, right? So now the machine's like, wow, not only did I find out that you get up between 6:04 and 6:17 a.m. every morning, but I looked at everybody else in the world that is like you and gets up around the same time as you and a professional like you and has personified you in some way and said, you know what, not only am I gonna start this coffee machine, I'm basically gonna create a flavor that you've never even thought about before based on the profile. That's sort of the generative AI, if you will. So you've got automation where you've automated this machine. This next step is kind of where we are, which is, a little bit of prediction, right? And then the third step is sort of the generative AI, if you will. Yeah.
So, last thing I'll say to this. So what is AI? AI is a software that mimics human cognition, human thought, human intelligence. That is AI. So if you look at Microsoft's definition of AI, it is software that mimics human cognition. That's it. Like up until every revolution, humans have found a way to outsource a function of their value to a machine, right? When we invented the cotton gin, we did a lot of human muscle, right? We started outsourcing machines and started leveraging machines for high production of human muscle, okay? Now we are starting to output and outsource a lot of human mental capability, like actual human intelligence into a software. That's all this is, folks. So like, what is AI, what isn't? Where does that line begin? Where does it end? If it mimics human intelligence, then it is a form of artificial intelligence. And by the way, this is why, go back to what Robby was saying, we've had technologies that can do this since the 50s. That's right. Yeah. Okay? So this is not new to us, folks. Okay.
Awesome.